All right, we are here today with Miss Carol Johnson. Thank you so much for joining us today here on the Black Album Mixtape. We're so happy that you are here with us. And just if you want to just go ahead and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are and the office that you hold.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this awesome project. I think that anytime we have an opportunity to talk about the needs of the community, it's a great time. And so I appreciate being able to lend my voice to the project. So thank you.
Yeah. No,
Um,
thank you.
so my name's Carol Johnson.
Mhm.
I am I'm really just, I'm a Black woman in America. And I'm a civil rights practitioner. And that means I care about, what's happening to us across this country.
Yeah.
And I have, devoted my to helping ensure that we have equity, across the board um,
Yeah.
for us. I currently serve as the first civil rights officer for the city of Austin, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. And have again worked for the past, I guess, almost 25 years, in the area of civil rights enforcement, policy, training, development,
Hmm.
and helping to really help build foundation and train the next generation of civil rights practitioners.
Yeah, yeah. Well, congratulations
Thank
on being
you.
the first civil rights
Thank
officer
you.
there. I know that you are now currently in the city of Austin, Texas, my home state. Love Texas, but you recently moved. You just recently moved to Austin from Arkansas. So, what? Tell me what that's like. Coming from Arkansas all the way to Texas during a
Yeah,
pandemic, and on
yeah,
top of that being the first civil rights officer in Austin. Tell me like a little bit what that means to
yeah.
you, what that process was like.
And I actually took a little bit of a pit stop. But in Arkansas, I actually started the Civil Rights Agency for the state of Arkansas about, oh shoot, I guess it's probably been, I did that for about 15 years. And
Oh.
so they had no civil rights enforcement agency whatsoever.
Mm.
So I had the opportunity to work with at that time Governor Mike Huckabee when he was governor of Arkansas, and worked under the leadership of three different governors to build a civil rights agency for the state there. And from that time, I moved to the Pacific Northwest, where I was the head of civil rights for the state of Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a very unique opportunity to experience and to be involved in and participate in civil rights enforcement there. And then for the state, moved to Seattle from there, where I worked in the federal sector as the director of programs and compliance for
Ah.
HUD. And so in that position, I had the states of Oregon, Washington,
Mm-hmm.
Idaho, and Alaska. And
Wow.
so I actually, it was kind of crazy. I moved here directly from Austin, I mean, directly from Seattle. And I was like, oh my gosh, it is colder in Texas than it is in Seattle. There's a problem.
Right.
That global warming that
Right. Right.
actually really does exist.
Right. Right.
But I mean, it's been it's a very different experience. It's a very different environment.
Mm-hmm.
Originally coming from a very red state like Arkansas, and then moving to a very blue state like Oregon and
Mm-hmm.
Washington, and then moving back to Texas. And I have found that, while the politics or the political structure may be different in different parts of the country, the struggle is the same wherever you
Right.
are. And so
Yeah.
we still feel and get the sense that there's still a lot of work to be done in the areas of civil rights. And I think,
Yeah.
a lot of people, for one, had this certain perception of what it would be like to live, in a blue state, you know, but very quickly found that, while you might have laws on the books, the enforcement might not be there. And
Mm.
while, the discrimination is a little bit different, it shows itself in a little different way from the
Mm.
South as opposed to the Pacific Northwest. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, it's still there. It's still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So it's like, do you want to see you want your enemies to be vocal? I found, in the Pacific Northwest, it's a lot more passive. You still
Uh,
have those issues, but you see them manifested in a more passive aggressive manner.
right.
So yeah, it is different. I mean, it certainly
Yeah.
is different. And then that means you have to kind of figure out how to maneuver those types of environments to really, really be effective in the enforcement of civil rights.
Yeah. So with that, and that's really very interesting that you would say, how it differs, but yet,
Mhm.
it's still the same. It
Absolutely.
just comes in a different package,
That's right.
per to say.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
with that and holding the position that you hold as a civil rights, um, do you feel like this is making what you have to do in the programs and initiatives that you're trying to implement? Do you find it to be harder with your job because of all of like the social unrest that we're currently
Mhm.
seeing? Does that make your
Mhm.
job more
Mhm.
challenging in any
Mhm.
ways?
I mean, I think yes. I mean, in some ways, I think that I heard people say a lot since the murder of uh, um, George Floyd that we're living in unprecedented times. Um, but we're not living in unprecedented times. I mean, if you look at the 1968 March on Washington and then
Right,
all of the marches leading up to that, we were talking about police brutality then. We were
right,
asking for the end of, the mistreatment of police by the criminal or of blacks and browns by the criminal justice system. Then this
right.
is not unprecedented. We've been going through this forever. But I think now with the technology and all these other things that we
Right.
have, we're seeing it come to life in a way we were never able to see it come to life before. So
Yeah.
there's more visibility and there's more transparency in terms of
Hmm.
what people we're able to capture as citizens.
Yeah.
And so I think that that lays bare the real challenges that we have. But certainly you know 60 years after the March on Washington, we still have persistent gaps in wealth and unemployment and
Hmm.
racial disparities and issues. The mass incarceration of blacks who there's more blacks in the prison system today than there were enslaved in 1850. There's a problem with
Yeah.
that. So I
Yeah.
mean, I guess the visibility of these issues just makes the job that much more critical. That
Right.
much more. It just brings things to light in a way that we didn't have before. We still need all of these things: the right to vote, the right to a fair trial, the right to governmental services, the right to a public education, the right to
Hmm.
use public facilities, eat at a restaurant that I want to eat at, go to a mall, do all those things that really improve the quality of life, right to have a job.
Yeah.
Free from discrimination, right to
Hmm.
have housing, all of those things. And again, these are not new. These
Right.
were part of the issues that were, that we were talking about and trying to change way back, when. So disproportionate impact of COVID-19
Yeah.
on Black and Brown and Native people,
Right.
and all the disparities that we have in health and, education, economic status. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot to tackle.
Yeah.
And I think that, I applaud the city, for having the foresight to create a civil rights office and a civil rights agency to tackle
Yeah.
some of these issues.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but we've got the work is plenty and the workers are few. I mean,
Right.
and and that is, that's civil rights. So, but
Right.
I am grateful to be here, to be the first civil rights officer, and to really be able to create an enforcement agency that I hope we can, stand up for the rest of the country. I hope to see agencies and offices like this popping up in
Mhm.
every city across America,
Right. Right.
because we need that. We need that. We need that
We
level of
do.
accountability. We need that level of transparency. The people need to know that our government cares. And quite frankly, I mean, if you just want to be honest about it, government played its role in
Mhm.
creating some of these disparities in the first place. So I
Right.
believe as government, we have that same responsibility to try to correct those wrongs.
Yeah. 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 I hope to see those type offices like yours
Mhm,
starting to pop up, and with all that you said and everything that has transpired, like you mentioned in the past, and
mhm,
what we're still seeing, and
mhm.
what kind of keeps you like motivated and encouraged in times like this,
Yeah.
knowing that okay, I'm the first, all eyes on me, and
Mhm,
I really want to make a difference. But in the back of your mind, like you just mentioned, it's been going on since 68. It's
mhm,
been going
mhm,
on since
mhm,
forever. So what gives you that,
mhm,
like, that little push and pull and say, okay, I'm going to go to Austin. I know it's going to be tough. I know I'm going to
mhm,
have my challenges.
mhm.
What do you say to yourself in the mirror and say, okay, Carol, this
Yeah,
is what,
yeah. I'm not even gonna lie and say it doesn't get hard,
right.
because I mean,
Absolutely.
it does. It times it's frustrating, it's discouraging. And even as I started out by saying I'm a Black woman in America. I'm a Black woman in a male dominated field. I
Absolutely.
am,
Can we just pause right there and just applaud that right
you
there
know, it,
is an achievement in its own. I mean,
well,
it really, really is, because you are up against enough already with just the
yes.
black part. And then with the
Okay.
woman part, and
That's
you're the first part. So there's going to be a lot of little, coming at you. So
hmm
I just want to take a moment to
well,
acknowledge that
well,
part. Thank you
I
so
thank you,
much.
and I think that we certainly stand on the shoulders of all those other women,
Absolutely.
and who have come before us, and have lived these experiences. It's funny. I have been a civil rights attorney for 22 years now, and even walking into a room, I still sometimes. Uh, People will refer to my colleague, who may be a subordinate, as the person in charge, when we walk in the room. And it never, so I say all that to say it's discouraging sometimes. But I think what really kind of helps me get past all of that is because if we don't do it, who will? I
Absolutely.
am certainly a person of strong faith. I believe that I was put here for a reason. I believe that I was given a talent that was meant to be used. And so I intend to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that, I believe that every obstacle that I might encounter, I will have the strength
Right. Yes.
to get
Absolutely.
through that.
Absolutely.
So I put that to the side, so that I can go ahead and do what I need to do to
Right.
try to make, this world a better place for those who are impoverished, for those who are disenfranchised,
Yeah.
for those who don't have a voice, for those who don't have, I may not have had every advantage in the world, but there are some that didn't even have that.
Yeah.
And so I just
Yeah.
feel that is, that's just part of my mission, my life's
Hmm.
mission, my passion, and what I want to do, in service
Yeah.
to others. And so I think, that really is what just, helps me get out of the bed
Hmm.
sometimes,
Yeah.
when it really is very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And also, just to see, we have wins, we have victories, we're able to help people. And, for the one person that we're able to help, that was the single mother, who didn't have to deal with sexual harassment in the
Hmm.
workplace anymore, who was vindicated,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's worth it.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
worth
Yeah. Yeah.
so when you think about what we are still going through as a people,
Hmm.
you know um uh it's just, we can't stop. You can't get
Yeah.
tired, you
Right.
can't get weary, as my mom would say,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
can't. And so that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, with all of the things that you mentioned and talk, you spoke about what your mission is and what you're trying to do. Have you had a chance to kind of sit down and outline some of the programs and initiatives that you're looking to implement? I know with your strategic outcomes and the direction that you're wanting to take with this offense and position. Have you had a moment to kind of nail some
You
of those programs and initiatives down?
Yes, I actually have had some time to sit down. I'm coming on week 7 or 8
Mhm.
here in
Can you
Austin. So I've
believe
got,
it?
yeah, I know, right? And so I have all these big plans. And I think, for this position and for this agency and office, we're in a unique situation because we get, to create, we're building something, a brand new agency where one didn't exist.
Mhm,
And so, that kind of in a way gives us a clean slate, to look at how are we going to structure the office, what infrastructure are we going to put in place to make sure we do the things
mhm,
that we need to do. And I think for one, the community engagement involvement is an important aspect of that. The Civil Rights Office for Austin was kind of birthed out of the Reimagining Public Safety Initiative uh, for Austin. And
mhm.
so some of the funds were redirected
Oh, okay.
from the APD or the police department in order to help create this agency.
Oh,
Um,
okay,
and
okay.
so community engagement and outreach and awareness of some of these issues are very
Mhm,
important to me and a big part of the initiative. So I think from one, obviously one of the biggest aspects is enforcement and making sure that we are here to enforce civil rights protections for Austin.
mhm.
And Austin is, in my Austin is the flagship for Texas. It is the
Yeah,
capital.
absolutely. You're
It is the
right.
place where things happen. And
Right.
I've seen that, Austin takes that initiative and takes those steps. And
Mhm.
we hope that, in some of these areas,
Yeah.
the state tends to follow. So I think building out the enforcement component is really important. We want to make sure that in terms of the civil rights enforcement, we get those down. Uh, Labor standards, that we make sure that we're addressing some of those issues, fair chance hiring for the reentry community. We want to reduce recidivism. We want to
Yeah.
make sure that people who are returning citizens really have an opportunity to integrate back into society.
Yeah.
You know, all of these other areas. So we want to make sure, and then we want to make sure that people, have access again to jobs, to housing, to education, to places of public accommodation. So we want to make sure that we build those things out. And then also creating a very robust and effective enforcement mechanism requires, making sure that we have a strong dispute resolution process within the agency. We need to be able to adjudicate these cases from intake through the resolution process, and not every case is going to go to court. But we do need to find a way to successfully and effectively resolve those cases, for people who have been negatively impacted, folks who have been discriminated against. So creating that aspect of it, providing technical assistance and resources to business and housing providers, and to employers, so they know, hey, these are the laws. This is what you can't do in the employment context. And I think that's really important for, we know a large majority of our businesses are small businesses. And then you look within the context of small businesses, a lot of whom don't have resources for HR personnel like that. So we hope to be able to stand in the gap in that way. And then finally, but certainly not least of this, is making sure the public understands, what does a civil rights violation look like? Where do I go when I believe my rights have been violated?
Absolutely.
How do I file a complaint? They need to know that this service is free. And we will help them through that complaint process. We will help them file. We will help them, go through all that. We will investigate it. We can, things to bring them and make them whole. And so having that level of communication with the public, making sure they know we're here, making sure they know, what they can do in the event that their rights have been, violated. All of those things are really important. And, again, just really being that resource for the community. And doing what we set out to do, which is protect people's rights. So, I mean, there's a big mandate. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'm grateful to be in a position. I'm grateful to be tasked with the responsibility. And I really just look forward to all the great things I know we're going to do in Austin.
Yeah, that sounds great, especially, informing the public, because sometimes we just don't know what's available to us. And even more importantly, what you said is, what does it look like?
That's right.
We have our own ideas and what we think, or what Google said, or what Alexa said, on what that
right.
looked like. But, having your office and offices like yours, actually show us, no, this is what it really looks like, and giving, empowering the community that they can do something, more positive, and feel good about that, knowing that an office like yours is behind them and have their back, and we really try to do something and really make them feel like their voice is being heard and taken care of. So I think that's great. And yeah, that's really, really great. I'm really excited about that.
I am too. I am
That is
too.
great. So with that being said, we're going to end this on a light note. I'm not going to take too much of your time, but with all that you're up against, all that you're facing, all of this pandemic and everything, what brings Carol Johnson what I deem pandemic joy? What brings you joy during this state of pandemic and social unrest and all that you're facing and wants to implement? What gives you joy in all of this and all of that you do?
Just in the wake of all of the devastation, with the policing issues and the pandemic, and here in Texas, I mean, that snowstorm we had. And we had people lose life here. And certainly, power and all these other things. I think I would say the the love, the black and brown love, and
Yeah.
the community love.
Yeah.
Like in the midst of all of that, I saw us come together, in a very mighty way. And, that brought me strength and that
Mhm.
brought me joy.
Mm.
And it brought me a sense of, um, I don't know, kind of in a way, a peace, in the middle of the storm, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, to see that and to
Yeah.
feel that, it was medicinal for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's giving me goosies just thinking about it.
I
Yeah.
mean, seriously. I mean, it really just was, and I think it's important, for us, to take care of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, and really a holistic approach, to just our health and our joy. But that brought me joy.
Yeah.
That
That's
certainly brought me joy.
wonderful. That is so nice. I love to hear that. I really do. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
spending this time sharing your story and just informing me and our Black Album Mixtape audience. Thank you so much, Miss Carol Johnson,
Absolutely.
first civil rights officer
Ah,
of the city of Austin, Texas.
thank you so
Thank you so much.
much.
I wish you all the best in all that you do. I sincerely mean that from my
Thank
heart.
you.
And I wish
Thank you.
nothing but success to you, to your family. Be encouraged.
Absolutely.
Be
Thank you.
encouraged. Be
Thank you so
encouraged.
much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.